So, after all these years, I have finally gotten to play Skull and Bones, and this is a beta test here, as this playtest took place over the past weekend, and I was fortunate enough to be given access to the game despite the harsh words that I've had towards Ubisoft, and I would like to thank them for that and for being the better man. Those who follow the channel know who I am eyeing at right now. Now, that being said, I was also able to test the game for the full 6 hours that they gave the testers, and I feel like that's enough time to do a review video, at least for those 6 hours that I could spend with in the game. We will first talk about what Skull and Bones actually is, because I believe that there is still a lot of confusion out there about the game. We'll then talk about the first moments within the game, its learning curve, we'll talk about its gameplay and what you can do with it, we'll have a look at its graphics, at the map, and we'll discuss its flaws and how it can improve. And finally, I will give it a verdict, which you already know here if you have read the title of this video. So without further ado, let's jump into it and let's talk about Skull and Bones. So, before we go in details about the game, I would like first to do a little recap about what it is and what it is not. Skull and Bones is not a multiplayer version of Black Flag. It may have its inspiration from it, it may have borrowed a few scattered elements from it, but it is not Black Flag Online. It is its own game with its own mechanism. I thought that making this clear from the start here would help, because there are so many people out there who are confused about it. I would also like to add that Skull and Bones is not a simulator. Don't expect Skull and Bones to be Star Citizen on the sea. It's much more arcadey, and there are loading screens too, although not as many as in Starfield, so don't expect here the same level of fidelity that you would find in Star Citizen. Also, Skull and Bones actually aims at playing more casually, and it works. You can just hop in, play and have fun for 15 minutes and then leave it. It's not going to force you to get prepared for half an hour before you can do anything, although it does require some preparation if you want to go a little further, and it's also not going to force you to go to a safe zone or to your landing zone if you want to leave the game, so that's also really nice. I also wanted to say here that Skull and Bones is more of a tactical combat MMO, some people would call it an RPG, set in the world of piracy, sparkled with other gameplay elements that greatly contribute in giving the game some extra flavors. But before you'll get to experience all of that, you will have to learn how to play the game, and from my experience, you will need a handful of hours to really get a good grasp at how Skull and Bones works. I gotta say that the tutorial is a little bit lackluster and a little bit off-putting. It's not really a great first experience with the game, but once you get through it, then you get to really experience and enjoy the game. So, that being said, here you start as the captain of a ship ambushed by the British Navy. Here you will have to learn how to steer the ship, fight, and use other tools such as, for example, your long view. Eventually, your ship sinks and you are sent adrift on the plank where you create your character. You are then rescued by a few survivors and head to a nearby island where you'll be given a few tutorial quests to learn how some of the mini-games or in the future in the game are working, and also how to navigate on foot on some of the islands you'll be able to explore. After that, it will be time to reach Satan, the pirate lair in the Indian Ocean. This will give you a chance to have a look at map navigation and practice sailing with the wind. A little more on that a little bit later as well. And so once you are at Santan, you'll get to familiarize yourself with all of the merchants and quest givers. I would suggest you to take a few fetch quests, as they would be perfect for you to explore the surroundings and how you'll be able to handle and manage your ship. Eventually, as you'll get more familiar with the game, you will also become more bold, become bolder, and take part in more dangerous actions, which leads us to the gameplay that's available in the game. So, what can we do in Skull and Bones? Obviously, there are going to be some ship-to-ship combats, and here I would say that those who reduce it to just pointing and clicking are greatly mistaken and will quickly die against players who will have spent the time to study how it works. There you will really have to get some cunning techniques, and also use the environment to your advantage if you want to get the upper hand. Getting to a ship's blind spot will allow you to shoot without getting shot, reorienting your ship after shooting so that another side can shoot while the previous one reloads allows you to deal more damage faster. Making evading maneuvers can also prevent a salvo from hitting you or a ship from deliberately ramming you. Taking advantage of the waves may give you the high ground, or the high seas I should say, and give you a good shooting angle your adversary may not have. All of that makes combat in Skull and Bones much deeper than it seems at first glance, and is, in my opinion, one of the biggest strengths of the game. However, there is obviously more than ship-to-ship combat in Skull and Bones, and it turns out that the game world features a dynamic economy with fluctuating prices driven by supply and demand. You can actually see merchant ships sailing in real time from outpost to outpost, buying and selling goods and influencing the buying and selling prices. You can also see harvesters harvesting resources and going back to their home base as well. And just like any game that features a dynamic economy, you can take part of it by harvesting resources or selling them, or even trade across the map by buying low and selling high, which also requires some exploration, and we'll talk about the map a little bit later. In addition, you can also have some bounty hunting, cargo hauling, and even the possibility to blockade and pillage settlements. You can go hunting on a plethora of wild animals, including sharks, crocodiles, or hippos, and I'm sure that there will be more in the final game. So yes, the game has the potential to keep you busy if you make the effort to discover it, which can take some time given the size of the map. Now, don't expect a full or accurate representation of the Indian Ocean. At the speed boats go, it wouldn't be very fun. Going from one end to another, despite the occasional bad weather, took me about an hour, but it is done well enough to allow you to recognize the real-life counterparts of the locations you'll encounter, such as Madagascar, Réunion and Mauritius, the Seychelles, and even the coast of East Africa. You can also identify these locations by their unique biomes or people who populate them. The islands look quite good overall, and they still have some occasional older textures and clipping reminiscent of the development hell that this game has been through, but it really looks stunning when sailing the seas, especially at dawn or at dusk. I've also been able to play with no frame rate drop and no bugs, which again here is very nice. I didn't need to report any of those here, and it made the experience very stable. Unfortunately, the game is not perfect, far from it in fact, and it does contain some flaws that make Skull and Bones a hard sell for some people. For example, I would say that off-boat interactions are very minimal, a few wreck searches, walking around Santan and some other small settlements just for missions and trading, and no actual boarding on ships or no combat on settlements when you are looting them. You actually spend most of your time at the helm of your ship, and I have the feeling that more could have been done here. Characters look and feel outdated. They were obviously not motion captured, and they don't look very detailed for today's standards. This is probably, again, a result of the very long development of the game. I would even add that a lot of the dialogues may also sound a little bit cringy, especially given the impression that Skull and Bones tries a little too hard to sound like a pirate game. I would say that native Africans and French characters are very well done though, and I have often enjoyed my interactions with them more than with my fellow pirates. Skull and Bones sometimes feels too arcadey, that can sometimes break immersion. That's true for the UI, which I found sometimes a little too intrusive, especially with the way that it shows how many hit points your enemies lose, and also it's also true here with the way that you loot things in the game. You just press S, and that's basically it. I wish that it could have been done a little bit more seamlessly, perhaps by throwing a net for the collection of floating items, for example. In the end, that 6-hour Skull and Bones demo still managed to get me quite obsessed with it. It took me to a point where I couldn't wait to have some free time to boot my PC and sail across that fictional Indian Ocean one more time. The game succeeded in giving me that sense of adventure, escapism, and immersion despite its flaws. I really loved sailing across various islands looking for opportunities by day, by night, by sunshine, or by stormy weather. I really enjoyed outsmarting or overpowering my enemies in tactical ship-to-ship combat, and I did find exploration and training relaxing while thought challenging at the same time. Despite not reaching the full potential of what it could have been, Skull and Bones still checks all of the boxes of what I am looking for in a game, and I will definitely install it as soon as it releases on February 16th of next year. But let me know in the comment section down below, guys, have you tried it? Did you like it? What do you think are the pros and the cons of Skull and Bones from what you've seen in this video or other videos? Do you agree also with what I said in this video? Would you have added something perhaps? Let me know everything in the comment section down below. I wouldn't be able to make this video without my Patreon and YouTube members, including Dr. Fobin, Zero Crusher, Deplorable Infidel, and Ducky2Ducker. If you too want to support the channel, the links are in the description down below. Also, feel free to subscribe if you want to see more gaming content. I have been Irad. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.